Hey guys, I'm Torsten Malm, tattoo artist specializing in realism. Today I want to share some of my tips for mixing your own grey washes. So when I'm doing grey washes, when I'm mixing my own grey washes, I use Super Black for that. We're gonna very soon go through how many drops of this I use for my grey washes. Now, I want to also mention that there are a few other ways of creating washes also, or greys, and I will be covering those in some future chapters. Okay guys, let's go check out how to mix your grey washes. Alright guys, so let's take a look at how I blend my grey washes. As I said, I use the Super Black for that. Now I have a big bottle, and then I use a special shading solution from Intense. Now, you don't have to use a special shading solution. You can use distilled water or witch hazel. But yeah, these special shading solutions are always a good choice because you can be sure that they are clean. Same with sterile water. So let's start. First of all, I want to mention that you see a lot of artists placing their ink bottles on the workstation. That's a big no-no because the surface of the bottles might have dirt on it, and you don't want any dirt to come on top of the workstation. I also want to mention that it is a smart choice to wear a face mask when setting up. Now, I'm not doing it because this is just serving as an example, and I'm not stating that wearing a face mask is important only because of COVID, but there are many bacteria in the human mouth that transmit through spit when we're talking, and that can be extremely harmful for other human beings when it comes in contact with their blood. So let's avoid doing any of those stupid mistakes. When you guys set up, make sure to wear a mask, make sure to wear clean gloves, and don't place any items on the workstation that are not clean. Now for this example, I'm also using these single-use caps, but I suggest that normally you would use these sterile ink caps because we do not know how these have been handled. They might contain some dirt inside of them. So better to be on the safe side and use these sterile caps and make sure to not contaminate the workstation. We want to keep it clean. Okay, so let's dive straight into it. The way I'm gonna do this is I usually have my lightest grey wash here, and then I go towards the darker. And it is very important that you have some kind of system for this, so you always remember where you have your darkest and where you have your lightest. Because honestly, in the ink cup, they might seem very close to each other. It's only when you're tattooing on the skin that's when you're gonna see the difference. So let's take a little bit of this Super Black. Make sure to shake the bottle well so you get the pigment in there. And then we're gonna be pouring some drops here. Now the first cap, I'm gonna be putting only one drop into that cap, so be careful. One drop. Next cap, I'm gonna be putting 2 drops into it. 1, 2. So this is a pretty thick pigment, so it's easy to pour these drops. If you're using dynamic or something else, it's a much more liquid ink, and it might be a little bit more hard to actually put those drops in the right amounts, but you'll get the hang of it when you do it. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. And the next cap, I'm gonna pour 4 drops in it. So you see a tendency here where I'm actually doubling the amount of drops. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you guessed it, the next one will be 8 drops. This is already gonna be a pretty dark color. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 drops. As I said, the 8 drops is actually already pretty dark when you're using Super Black, but usually I want to use one tone that is very close also to black, but not completely. So I'm going to put about 1/3 of the cap with black. Yeah. Doesn't have to be so exact, because you can play around quite a lot with your hand speed also. And then obviously the last cap we're gonna pour full of black. Voila! So I'm gonna take my special shading solution and just pour the caps full of this. As such. Now, once that's done, we want to make sure to mix the ink properly, because we don't want all the pigment to be on the floor of the cap. Otherwise, we're just going to end up tattooing water. So what I usually use as a mixer is one of these standard long needles, and make sure it's in a sterile package. We don't want to dip anything in the ink that isn't sterile. So let's go ahead and open it. And the part of the needle that I'm gonna be using is this loop here. And I'm gonna start from the lightest color. I'm gonna start by mixing it like this. And make sure to mix it for a while, so a minute or so. You don't wanna be just turning it once or twice, you wanna mix it properly. And once you're done, you can wipe the needle off and then go to the next one. Now, I also want to make sure that you guys understand that do not go from dark to light when you're mixing them, unless you make sure to really clean the needle off, because otherwise, if you just imagine starting from the black and ending up in the lightest one, you can imagine that you're actually putting a lot more ink or pigment into this last cap, because it only has one drop, so we really don't want to add any more pigment into that. We want to keep it as a really light tone. And so forth. Now you just go ahead and mix all of these. And now once they're all mixed, your gray washes are ready. And it's actually as simple as that. And this will be a very smooth transition. Now, not all artists will need such a big row of gray washes, but this is very good for beginners and also advanced artists. You can also use just a black and just dip it in water and dilute it as you go. But in all honesty, this helps a little bit. Since you're prepared, you have a nice set of washes. You can create your own washes in ink bottles also, directly if you want, or just buy a wash set. But if you want to mix your own, it's a very good way of doing it. And you know you always have the same consistency like this. I hope this gray chapter was interesting for you, and hopefully I'll see you next week here. Ciao.